Hey y'all, I'm Jerdy. I'm going to give y'all a little update going into Phase 4's PTR for Seasonal Discovery. So I never really post on the forums, but I took an opportunity to, as Blizzard was advertising us to get feedback on your prospective classes and roles that you're playing. And my first time going to the forums, I was like, I had a big fear that with all the brain rot and stupid takes, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm sorry, it sounds rude, that was being spewed on there, that they would not see the actual testing and data being provided by people who are playing these classes and testing out multiple specs and builds. Because as I looked on the PTR forums, there were people like me and other players who were like, hey, if I do this, I have greater DPS, but it sacrifices this, and this isn't fun. Like, as Prot Paladins were testing out, Shield of Righteousness is super weak. Can we buff this? Hammer of the Righteous might have gotten us too strong of a nerf. Can we look at buffing it up again? We have different scaling issues. Rets aren't super happy with Seal Twisting. It's like a half and half. Seal Twisting is a little harder with our abilities. How do we do, the tier set bonus is not really popular. And then there's people like, hey, we need a gap closer. That's the main thing we need. And it's like, no, it's not. And what happens when we get that update on this past Thursday? We got a gap closer, and they buffed Righteous Vengeance, which is like, nobody asked for this, or one person asked for this. So that really got me down, and I was pretty frustrated with that. Luckily, Zyrene, if you don't know who Zyrene is, he was a Prot Paladin in TBC and Wrath, a very good Prot Paladin, now works for Blizzard, replied to one of my tweets saying that the reason they didn't mess with Prot Paladin too much was because of the bugged Holy Shield damage, and they want to get to more of that testing for the next update, which made me feel a little better. Actually, and I felt bad too because I was pretty doomer in my reply to Agrand. So I saw the update and I was excited, and I was like, oh my god, like, are you serious? I was so mad because out of, like I said earlier, all of the things we asked for, and just one person screaming gap closer, and that's what we got. I mean, Divine Steed's cool and all, but it's like, we don't need that. That's not something I don't think anybody was really asking for. So right here is my forums post after the update of the PTR, talking about what I think we need the most for the next update, whenever that's going to be. It might even be tomorrow since the PTR is down as I'm recording this. But the main thing I'm kind of concerned about right now is Hammer of the Righteous. I thought this nerf was appropriate until I realized how bugged Holy Shield was and how they fixed that bug. Somebody brought it up, and this is, I 100% agree with them. Holy Shield should not be the majority of our damage, which it was before the PTR update. Hammer of the Righteous was one of our best abilities, even our best single target abilities. I think it needs to get back to that state. I know that the concern was Reds having to use Hammer of the Righteous for AoE, but just buff Divine Storm then. Don't nerf our ability. I think a good compromise would be to either keep its damage for single target, but then split that damage amongst the 3 targets it can hit. Or someone else suggested this, find a happy medium of doing ×3 your weapon DPS versus the ×4 it is live and the ×2 it is on the PTR. Holy Shield, yeah, we know it was bugged. It was doing insane damage. If you dueled somebody, they would kill themselves by hitting you. But it needs some sort of scaling. It just doesn't scale well with like anything. I don't know what it scales with. I should know that, but I don't. But I know that it's not strong, and we feel kind of bad running it now. We shouldn't have to rely on the 6-piece for it to be a good ability. Shield of Righteousness and Vindicator, this is kind of a big one too. There is no reason to run Shield of Righteousness. It's not good. It scales with block value not very well, and Vindicator is just too strong. I think it needs some sort of buff or modifier. Like, I think it should also work with our other shield named abilities like Avenger Shield and Holy Shield. It would be cool if it reduced Avenger Shield cooldown because it's so long, or if it buffed Holy Shield's damage, or if it buffed the mitigation Holy Shield did, or both, or if it did all 3 of the things I mentioned. Or something to consider is maybe have Vindicator buff all Paladins. That way we don't feel the need to run it if we have a Ret in the raid. As it stands right now, the best single targeted build for deep Prot would be Prot Ret to get Vindicator, meaning we couldn't have a Shield of Righteousness or Consecration. So we would need an off spec for AoE, which means we wouldn't even have an off spec for DPS, meaning we'd have to be main tank. There'd be no reason for us to be off tank, or we'd do pretty much no damage. Scaling, testing, specs, and gear. I mentioned this earlier. Our scaling's all over the place. Some abilities come from block value, not very well. Attack power, spell power, defense. I think we need to cut some of this out. I think block value is cool in theory, but just make it attack power, spell power, and defense. I think adding that extra block value stuff really messes with our gearing. If we just put everything into defense and spell power, attack power, it just makes life easier for us. We tested out some builds with the same spec but with different gear and saw anywhere from a 300 DPS difference, and the ones hitting around 900 DPS were relying on extra swing proc pieces like Hodge from Blackrock Depths or the 3-piece from Sunken Temple, the Wailing Berserker set. It just makes us really gear reliant, and if you played Prot Paladin in TBC and in Kata, you understand that pain, and I think we can avoid that going into phase 4 if we do some proper changes. Molten core testing, I talked about this in my last video, and Blizzard brought this up for Warlock tanks, but make things blockable. That way, if we're running Holy Shield, we actually can generate threat from Holy Shield and damage. Personal thoughts, I know guys, I know tank specs are not DPS specs, and some of y'all scream that into the void on my videos, but guys, it's the vanilla client of WoW. We min-max our classes. I have played red tank for 3 phases now. I would love to play deep prot if it was good or necessary, but it hasn't been necessary for 3 phases, so why should I run it? Will I end up playing ret prot? Maybe. I'd love to go prot ret and main deep prot and have Holy Shield if it's good, but if it's not going to be good, then there's no point. There are specs that don't involve any sword and board runes, but still go sword and board. How frustrating is that? Running Purified Power over Hammer of the Righteous. That feels wrong. I like that being an option, but Hammer of the Righteous should be just as good for a tank to run. I don't question min-maxers. I'll probably min-max myself. I'll probably go 2-hand for the parse. If you see my logs, I like parsing, but I also like being a tank, and I like having a sword and board, and low-key, I want to have Thunder Fury, and if I'm going to do terrible DPS with Thunder Fury, then what's the point? But these are my posts. These are my thoughts. I'm sure I missed something as I'm recording this, but you can check this out. I'll also put a link to other people's posts as well if you want to check theirs out. Like here's Alloy. He uses a bunch of emojis to get the Zoomer intern's attention. He's so annoying. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. Who knows? Maybe we'll get an update tomorrow. Maybe we'll get an announcement this week about when phase 4 is coming out. I was talking to another paladin who ran some pretty insane DPS builds. One thing I want to mention too is you got to take the DPS you're getting with a grain of salt, because we are testing on an undead raid boss Testwerk, so we're getting guaranteed crits off our exorcisms. You have to subtract some DPS off that for those guaranteed crits we're getting. I was gonna post some specs to test out, but I'm gonna wait for the next update on what changes we might get to Prot Paladin before I post that. And the last thing I can say is, I'm just thinking about this right now, is when you post in the forums, really think about what you're saying and get advice from people who are actually testing before you just say things, because it's really frustrating to see so much nonsense drown out actual important feedback and criticism. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just really upsetting, I guess. And with that being said, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sound doomer. I'm just tired. If you wondered why I haven't posted a video in a while, it's because the Elden Ring DLC came out and I finally beat it. It took me 10 plus hours in the last boss. No spoilers, but it was insanely amazing and low-key kind of bullshit on how hard it was. But I'll be back with more guides and stuff as we get more updates. I'm excited for phase 4 still. I've grinded out my Arcane crystals. I've been doing that a lot. But, you know, let me know how y'all feel about Paladins right now in the PTR. You like them? You hate them? Leave a comment down below. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hi. Follow me on twitch.tv/dirtyjd, and I'll see y'all next time. Hopefully soon.